but our purpose is really about making multi-carrier delivery simple for customers. So we're all about how do we take the complexity out of it? How do we enable it to be seamless through the services, through technology we provide, so that those customers can actually give the delivery experience that their customers expect and also grow their business.
Welcome to Chain Reaction, the podcast for the supply chain and logistics industry. If you enjoy this conversation, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Chain Reaction podcast. As always, we talk everything logistics, and today I have an amazing guest. I have Bobbie Ttooulis, who's a group marketing director of GFS, and we're going to talk about kind of the platform that they have and the services they provide. But I would like to start first, Bobbie, is how come did you get into logistics? It's very often they're fascinating stories, and I'm sure you have a good one for our viewers to hear as well.
Yeah, well, if somebody had said to me back then, you're gonna end up working in the logistics industry, I would have said that there's no way that could ever happen. So yeah, my background is very much in technology and business services. So very much in the technology field. And to answer your question, it was easy. I was approached by our investors, our private equity investors at the time, who asked me to come and join the team. And once I understood what GFS were doing and met the rest of the team, I was sold. So that was, 8 years ago, which is incredible because I never thought I would be in logistics, let alone be still here after 8 years.
Well, yeah, logistics to many outsiders is just trucks and sheds and boring and greasy. So, but actually, once you peel the surface, there's actually quite a lot of interesting stuff. And I appreciate that you coming from tech. So, you kind of grew into kind of liking the logistics side of things, and especially at GFS. So, can you tell us a little bit more about the GFS and what GFS does, and kind of what is the business model?
Okay, so GFS was actually established 21 years ago. So we're a UK-based company. We were established 21 years ago. We came to market, and at that time, we were the only provider of managed multi-carrier services and supporting technology. There was nobody else out there that did that. And since then, fast forward 21 years, and now we are still unique in what we do very much. And we're also the largest provider of outbound delivery and return services across multiple carriers and all the technology. So that's what we do. But our purpose is really about making multi-carrier delivery simple for customers. So we're all about how do we take the complexity out of it? How do we enable it to be seamless through the services, through technology we provide, so that those customers can actually give the delivery experience that their customers expect and also grow their business, whether that's expanding channels, going into new markets, whatever it is. We want to be the ones that are taking that stress away from them and enabling them to be better at what they do.
Well, you mentioned that GFS is a technology platform, so you're not a carrier yourself. You're like an aggregator of multiple carrier providers, whether that would be, and the focus is it mostly on the last mile deliveries, kind of the e-commerce as a main kind of the channel and the customer base.
One thing that we're not. Okay, so yes, Our technology, our multi-carrier technology, which enables customers to automate and streamline the back-end processes from being able to surface delivery options at the checkout to then, being able to pick, pack, label, ship, track, trace, return. That whole outbound, inbound loop is automated by the technology that we provide. But the technology is part of the value add. What we are selling and where our revenue comes from is selling multi-carrier services. What we're not is a reseller. We're not a reseller. That's not our business. We are a high-end, value-based provider of multi-carrier solutions. That's what we do. So, Yeah, we don't have our own. We do have our own trucks. Obviously, we do because when we need to go out and rescue, or if we want to provide a consolidated collection, then we will send out GFS vehicles. But we are there
Uh-huh.
to make sure that we can work across all the carriers, all the services, have a single point of contact for a customer to be able to have the widest range of services available to them, but more
Mm.
importantly, know that they are getting an unbiased recommendations as to what that carrier mix should look like based on their business needs and their customer needs.
Okay, well, that's very interesting. So I and let's on the practical side of things. Let's say, not let's say, I literally had a couple of over the past few weeks. I had a couple of podcasts with one with a limoncello producers, the other one with champagne importer or champagne maker, and another one with a biosoda drinks business. So
Yeah.
and they are, let's call them SMEs. So I'm an SME business. So let's say if that is me, and I need delivery to my customer base, and my customers could be B2B and B2C.
Mm-hmm.
So, and let's say I have a warehouse somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So how would, and I come to you and I come to GFS and say, guys, can you help me
Mm-hmm.
with B2C delivery channel? So first of all, it is a B2C kind of
Mm-hmm.
that I'm mostly concerned with at the moment.
Okay.
Especially, I mentioned the drinks. So both the
Yeah.
champagne and the limoncello, fragile, needs to be well packaged. If it is a
Yeah.
premium product, it needs to be well presented. It needs to be obviously should not be
Yeah,
broken because it's
sure.
glass.
Yeah.
So how would you go about having the conversation with the client and specifically addressing the challenges through the service that you just
Understood.
mentioned?
Yeah. Well, it's all about what you said, understanding what the client is looking for, what products they ship. So the first thing is that we would probably go on site to have a look at the products, what products they're handling, how they're being shipped, how they're being packaged, whether it's the right packaging, whether we will look at the whole piece. And then based on that, it depends what the driver is. What is it they're trying to achieve? Is it to expand their delivery options? Is it that they want to offer a wider range of delivery options? They may be offering express and economy, but they're not offering any of the other premium services like a time delivery, weekend delivery, whatever. So we try to understand what the product is, what the business challenge is. Like in a lot of cases, customers will say, look, we're working with 2, 3 carriers and it's a nightmare because one will turn up at 11 o'clock. Another one will turn up at 1 o'clock and the next one will turn up at 5 o'clock. What we want is for them to turn up once, one collection, and preferably on a Saturday once we've managed to clear all the orders. So it really depends what the business priorities are, whether it's operational, whether it's economic, whether it's about the customer end user experience. And once we understand all the pieces of the puzzle, the products, how they're being shipped, what they're trying to achieve, then we can sort of solve that problem for them by coming back to them and say, right, these are our recommendations. For these types of products where they need to be handled with care or for this kind of service, we would recommend this service with this carrier, but for this service, then we would recommend that carrier because what we're trying to do is put together the best fit solution across all the carriers that we're trying to find. And just to clarify, we do work B2B and B2C. So we do the same
Right.
with our B2B customers, although their requirements are slightly different, as well as B2C.
Okay. Well, and this is interesting because it sounds to me like this is exactly what the multi-carrier offer is where the customer has a problem which may have a multiple solutions or a multi-dimensional solution. I'll give you another example. There's another
Yeah.
podcast that is coming out shortly. It's it's the greeting cards and
Oh, yeah.
gifts business. And they
Yes.
have two completely different velocities. I remember that conference that you were talking about the baskets, the
Yeah, the
hamper
gifting
baskets.
one. Yeah,
So
yeah.
this is a different business. So they have on one hand they have greeting cards, which are very fast, extremely low value, so cheap. So the service, and they have to use Royal Mail. I'm not gonna complain about them, but many people do. So it is cheap and cheerful, but unfortunately not
Not so
always
cheap
as
anymore.
reliable. well, that's another kettle of fish entirely.
Anyway,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yes,
they provide a
and then there are
service which
baskets
is
that are gift
yeah.
exactly, and then there are gift baskets that need to be handled slightly differently. There's slightly different velocity, there's slightly different site, and how it gets delivered. So essentially, with you as a kind of the main aggregated provider can give that multi-channel, multi-provider,
Absolutely.
multi-fulfillment
Yeah,
option to the end customer.
absolutely. So in terms of our, because you don't just look at the breadth of services, we don't just offer all the services under one roof. Our technology comes with that. So technology needs to be able to enable everything that you do, and the fact that we integrate with all the marketplaces, all the main sort of e-commerce platforms, that all helps. So just to answer your question, it's not just about when the problem we solve for those kind of businesses that you've just described is that they, first of all, they know that they need a multi-carrier solution for obvious reasons. One carrier is not going to give you everything you need in terms of types of services, and they're not going to be equally good, even if they did, in all of those services. And also, you don't want to be with one carrier or two carrier or just two, because that creates exposure and risk. You need to spread your risk. You don't want all your eggs in one basket. So businesses understand that. But what they can't quite see is how they can get to that without having to go down the traditional route, which to them is, okay, I've got to be speaking to 4 different carriers. Now I'm thinking about 4 technology integrations onto my platform. And if I'm putting 10% of my volume over here and 20% over there and 30%, then I'm diluting my buying power. And we're saying, no, actually, we can give you the breadth of services without diluting your buying power. In fact, you benefit from our greater buying power, because when we're going to those carriers, we're going with all the volumes across all our carriers. So those are the types of problems that we solve, is the operational, the customer experience, and enable a lot of these smaller businesses to be able to compete, with the likes of bigger players who will have more buying power, will have 10 options, delivery options when they get to the checkout. It does help them level the playing field. But just to clarify, we are not a good fit, say, for businesses that have just started out, right? And we're not a good fit for huge enterprise size businesses, because they probably have a lot of those capabilities in-house themselves. Where our sweet spot is really in working with those businesses that are either, scaling fast, have got complexity in their business, consistently, or, are of a certain size in terms of volume and turnover, but they've just hitting that point where it's too complex for them to be able to deal with it. And those are the businesses. So they could be selling across multiple channels. They could be now looking to expand in different countries, looking to expand their delivery options. And it's just too complicated.
And you can no longer run it on Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah, and
some of
the
them
world is
trying
not
to do.
standing still.
Yeah.
It's a dynamic environment. We've had the fallout from Brexit. Now we've got Trump with all the tariffs coming in. It never stands still. It's always the goalposts are always moving. So those people can't be expected to be experts in those areas, and they're not going to want to, recruit people to do that. So that, again, that's where we become a partner for them, is in the expertise. We're always going to be one step ahead of what's happening in delivery.
I think you mentioned the very nice, you mentioned the very nice word that actually it's a differentiation. So it says expertise and technology, and one is not substitution for the other. It has to work together. So the technology allows managing multiple providers or differentiate or
Yeah.
automatically transact, create reporting and so forth, but it's an expertise that helps people decide which path to take. So how do you balance the two? Is that and this is the interesting bit. So obviously you have a lot of experts in house, and then there's a technological platform, there's a
Mm.
foundation that does a lot of kind of nitty gritty routines. So what I'm getting at is the debate that many people currently have, for example, about AI. Is it going to replace us?
Yeah.
Is the technology going to replace humans, and are we going to be left out and sitting on welfare? So, how do
Yeah.
you see that?
Certainly AI has a place at every point across the business and everything that we do. But if we just look at your question at a simple level, we provide expertise, we provide technology. How do we do that? Well, our technology, as I said, is an enabler, and we have a dedicated team of in-house developers that are constantly evolving that. But we're not seeing the technology as replacing what the people do in those businesses. It's about making, operations more streamlined. So if we're talking about our tracking, our multi-carrier labeling uh, piece of technology, that is about making sure that, labels can be, they've got one platform for producing labels for every carrier, every service, that those labels are going to be compliant. So the accuracy is correct. The speed of throughput and labeling is going to increase. The technology is an enabler. Our expertise really is always going to come from our people. That's never going to be, replaced by our AI, not the deep expertise,
Hmm.
and that's going to come through from our account managers, from the board. Everybody within the business has come from the industry. And don't forget, because of the scale that we have, we are very much entrenched with all our carriers and very much at the forefront of understanding what changes are happening, what trends are coming. This is all forward thinking rather than learning from the past. And, AI does not look at forward thinking. It looks at what's happened and learns from that.
Of course, yeah, and then yeah, the AI or whatever we call AI these days is not inventing anything new. It just repackages what has already been developed by the experts.
Yeah, I think, like I said, we're not underestimating AI, and I don't think there's any business on this earth right now that's not seriously looking at how we're going to take advantage and exploit AI. But um, people want to deal with people at the end of the day.
Mm.
When our front facing, our customer facing teams are humans. So it's the account manager that's going to come out to see you. It's the customer service person that's going to pick up the phone to understand what your problem is, etc. There is a place for AI, but it's not to replace the people relationships and the trust that we build with our customers.
You are listening to Chain Reaction. This podcast is brought to you by Phlox, the leading marketplace for the supply chain and logistics industry. Visit phlox.is to find out how you find the perfect supplier or make your services available to prospective buyers. Thanks for tuning in. Now back to the show.
Which is, yeah, I've heard, I've hear you kind of echoing the comments that I've heard elsewhere as well, in terms of we're losing human touch,
Mm.
and people are getting very, very kind of despondent and depressed from having a conversation with robots when you're calling a bank or when you're calling a helpline, and just nobody can tell you anything, and you have to go through mega massive menus, and now it's AI, so there's not enough. I actually heard people complaining about Amazon for that. It's like you can't call someone, you can't know exactly where your stuff is. If something is, as soon as something goes slightly wrong, nobody can do anything, and nobody knows where stuff is. So that kind of a
Mm.
human interaction is extremely
I think
valuable.
it's
Um,
yeah. Sorry,
please,
I was just going to
no,
say in delivery, you know, when it comes to, there's so much at stake with deliveries. Final mile delivery, especially when it comes to being able to protect and deliver on that promise to the customer, which is your consignments are going to arrive at this time, whether it's a B2B or your parcel is arriving at this time, to where you ask for it. There's so much at stake. It's all about trust. And you've got to have that human touch, that human trust, whether you're speaking to our customer or their customer's customer. Because delivery, especially in the e-commerce and final mile, when we're talking about, retail and that, delivery is no longer a logistics problem. It's actually a customer loyalty problem. And, we speak to more and more, we speak every day with e-commerce. We speak with the warehouse manager, the delivery manager, whatever that person is called. And more, those conversations are almost blending, because now we're finding that our operations people are actually talking about things like not just the core KPIs of, first time delivery success, cost per parcel, etc. They're talking more and more about, they're bringing more and more customer satisfaction into the conversations. And it is becoming very much a customer loyalty problem. If delivery fails, you lose that customer, you lose that sale, it impacts your brand, and has repercussions across the business.
Interesting. You actually make me think here, because I came from I was coming from an angle that it's not a delivery problem. I thought it was like it's an information problem. So we are in an information age, and the data is the new oil, and essentially the information, the visibility, the traceability of stuff. But actually, I think you've summed it well. That is enabler for loyalty, for greater appreciation of the service that
again,
people
the
are getting.
data, the technology, everything is all about achieving the end outcome, which is that customers' expectations are met. And that applies equally to a B2B customer or a direct-to-consumer customer. Their expectations are met. Now, if things go wrong, and to your point about managing expectations and data, what we find in our experience is that a failed delivery is not a delivery that doesn't turn up when it was supposed to do. A failed delivery actually is when something's gone wrong and you haven't notified the customer. So, they get that notification, they get that information that says, really sorry, your parcel's delayed by an hour, but we'll be there soon.
And that is actually, I literally experienced that yesterday. It's exactly
Yes.
that. I had a message from DHL. We're going to be with you between 3 and 4, and they never did. They turned up at 5:30, and I was like, "Where's my stuff?" Because so communication, the loyalty and visibility is absolutely critical. So, and technology is coming back to technology. It helps a lot with that. So there's a lot of automation can be built in. There's a lot of there's a lot of elements in the algorithms that help out with that, which deals with the likes of high seasonalities, the volumes, volatility going up and down, the choice of different providers for different jobs or different regions. But what would you describe kind of today and kind of going forward, the kind of immediate challenge that you see in the business?
In terms of what? The being able to deal with fluctuations, or like coming into peak, for example? Yeah.
Yes, something like that. Exactly. We're coming to Christmas, and the capacity is going to be scarce. Yeah.
Well, first of all, this is, peak for us is when we're all the guys at GFS, we're all chomping at the bit, because this is when we come into our own. So we actually work with peak, there's a lot at stake, especially if you're, for example, one of our customers sells hampers, right? Both as corporate gifts, so B2B and direct to consumer, B2C. Now, 78% of their revenue and their sales go through the tills in 5 weeks of the year. So come beginning, mid-November to end December, middle of December, that is when, if anything goes wrong, that's going to hurt their business for the whole year. So peak is absolutely critical for them to make sure nothing goes wrong, especially around delivery. So the way we work with our customers, and we would consider it best practice, is that peak is not something you look at in October for December. We will start analysing, learning from what happened last peak, what were the learnings from that. So looking at analysis, doing a wash up, Typically doing that around February, March time. And
Hmm.
from that being to identify what are the key actions that need to be addressed, whether it's software, whether it's services, whether it's product, packaging, whatever, marketing, sales. What are the areas that need to be addressed? And obviously, if it's anything to do around the final mile delivery and returns, that's where we plug in our actions plan. So you do the wash up in February, March, then you've got a few months to put those things in place. Typically, carriers will want to have forecasts submitted by a certain deadline. So we've seen those deadlines come forward from like middle of October. Now they're coming earlier and earlier. This year it's like end of September. We provide the first round of forecasts for each of our customers. And that's because carriers want to lock in capacity so that when peak comes, if your forecasts are wrong, the likelihood is that you might get turned away. You either get turned away you may find that carrier doesn't have extra capacity to give you because your forecast was under. If it was over, you could find yourself with penalties, right? So we do the analysis, we do the forecasting and planning, get the plan in, so robust planning, get the plans in on time, make sure we've built in some leeway. But then it's really down to having a contingency plan, because no matter how good your plan is, what problems you've already experienced, you say, right, okay, we'll mitigate those problems this year because we're going to do ABC. Something always comes up. So at that point, you've got to have a plan B. And this is where the whole multi-carrier piece comes in, and where if you've got a good relationship with your partner, your delivery partner, they will be able to, as we've done in the past, if one carrier's, depots are shut down because of lack of capacity or bad weather, we will switch volumes to another point to make sure that we can protect that delivery for that customer. And that's what we do.
That's very interesting. You mentioned the word forecast, and in a couple of recent podcasts, we actually talked about the forecasts, how sensitive and how difficult those are to get right, especially if you are a relatively small-ish business. And highly dependent, for example, on the various kind of consumer channels, is very difficult to forecast well. I mean, one of the examples I had recently, kind of a podcast with a contract manufacturer for cosmetics, and what she told me is that you may have a situation where, I don't know, a couple of girls in the garage will record an amazing TikTok that goes
And
absolutely
it
viral,
explodes. Yeah.
and it explodes from a
Yeah.
volume point of view. How can you forecast for that? And then the two questions there. How would you forecast for that, which is virtually impossible mathematically? But the second thing is, well, how you deal with it when it materializes.
Well,
And you have to
this is where
firefight.
robust forecasting comes in. So you're going to be looking at everything. You're going to be looking at what did we sell last year? What's the economic outlook? How's the economy doing? How's consumer confidence doing if you're a consumer brand? You're going to be taking in lots of different factors and elements to inform your thinking around, okay, where do we think it's going to go this year? We're going to be above, or we're going to be flat, we're going to be below. And obviously you've got you're looking also at the revenue you've had so far in the year as well. So you're taking in all that. So I think it is down to robust planning and making sure it's not just finger in the air or saying we'll do the same as last year. Right.
Right.
So you've got to do your robust planning, but then you've got to have a plan B. And obviously you're going to know what marketing campaigns you're going to be doing if you're going to be going on TikTok, on Instagram, and you're going to build in that contingency to say, okay, if this happens, then we need to be able to increase, our volumes are going to go from this to this potentially. So how can we make sure that we're covered for that? So it's all about that, having that plan B and having contingency.
Yeah, I remember from my consulting days the phrase "plan is nothing, planning is everything." So
Yes. Or
is
what's the other
having
one?
those, yeah.
Fail to plan is planning to fail. That's another one. I love that. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
But you need a plan
Well,
B.
Oh, 100%. You need a plan B and sometimes plan C and D because you never
Yeah.
know what can potentially go wrong. The volumes can go up and down, and sometimes you can plan for a viral campaign that never
Yeah.
materializes, and then
But
accidentally
yeah.
something just goes off, and
But thankfully, this is where, you know, this
that's where
is where
expertise
you
comes
need to
in.
be able to rely on your partner, not just GFS, but your partner, because it's all about how does your partner rescue you, come in and help you
Hmm.
recover when you are in those situations, because it's their problem to solve. Or at least you should
Yep.
have the confidence that they feel it's their problem to solve.
Well, it's interesting. So, this what kind of the question that was sitting in my mind is, the business model that you guys are running, is it closer to 4PL or 3PL? What I mean by that is that, do your customers just simply, let's trivialize that, either give you volume and then you will do the best way of executing it, or you give through technology and through your initial expertise and setup, you give the steering wheel to the customer, and with through the use of your platform they say, okay, I'm going to ship that with that with DHL,
Okay,
that
yeah,
goes with you, that goes
yeah.
with that.
Okay. So in terms of the capabilities we have,
Yeah.
GFS on its own is all about multi-carrier, final mile delivery and returns and enabling technology. So everything, all the services around that, the expertise, the technology. We were acquired almost 2 years ago by ILG, who and as a result of that, we're now part of a huge global supply chain network, which corporate, which is organization, which is called Houston Logistics. So
Right. Yeah.
when we talk about what we can offer our customers, we're not just offering final mile now. We can actually offer fulfillment as well as sort of like upstream, freight movements and all of that from factories and whatever else, which I don't quite understand. That's not where we sit, but we have those capabilities now. So the way we work is very much right at the outset. Nobody's going to ring us up and say, right, okay, I need multi-carrier services. Can you come and plug in your technology? Give me access so that I can pick and choose what services we do. That is not how it works. The way it works is very much ringing up and say, I need multi-carrier or I need services. What can you do? Is sitting down and understanding what that customer's business is. Understanding up front what services we're going to start out with, at least for the next 12 months. So we have a 12-month view, 12-month contract of the best fit services based on recommendations, like I
Mm.
mentioned earlier. So they start off with those. However, because our technology is plugged in, which is pre-configured with all the services that are available across every carrier, because we are able to offer all carriers, not just the set that we offer to them at the outset. If further down the line, we advise that we change services or add services, that customer can pivot very quickly. So there is a lot of agility that they get, but also even if I think down to smart technology,
Mhm.
GFS checkout, which is the module that integrates with the customer's online checkout process. That is the piece of technology that enables the customer to surface the delivery options to their customers at the checkout. And it's a
Right.
rules-based engine. And, so you can imagine when that customer comes to the page, there is smart technology which will look at what's in their basket, where's it looking to be shipped. And based on that, it will surface the relevant delivery options.
Right. Okay. Well, it's interesting. Yes, I think that was exactly kind of the question that I was looking for to get answered. So, my last question that I mentioned that I like kind of asking every one of my guests: if you had a magic wand, or you had one wish that could be granted, sort of what would you change in logistics, in the business, in kind of in either in the business, kind of in logistics business in general, not necessarily in your company, but kind of in the setup. What is something that is kind of keeping you awake at night, and you'd like it to get resolved?
I don't think there's any particular single thing that is keeping me awake at night. to be honest with you. I mean, everything's moving all the time. So there's always going to be something which is giving you that fire in your belly, so to speak. But if there was something that I wish I could change fundamentally, in the logistics world, whether you're talking, freight forwarding or middle mile or final mile, I just wish that everybody could start thinking about what's the end point? Who is the end point? But be much more customer focused, whether you're thinking about the B2B customer or the B2C customer. Is I do think that there has to be this shift from thinking about, understanding that it's not just logistics, the problem of moving something from A to B, but it's actually who it's going to and what you're trying to achieve, the impact it has on them. So being far more customer centric, putting the customer in the middle of everything.
I understand. Thank you. This is great insight, and it definitely echoes many conversations that I had in the past as well. Because sometimes people forget about the customers, that are actually the customers who are kind of on the receiving end of this and paying for this. So thank you again, Bobbie, for being a great guest. It was a very, very interesting conversations, and thank you again for talking more about what the multi-carrier kind of logistics is and how it benefits the company. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks for tuning in to Chain Reaction. We hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have a story or insights to share from your sector, we'd love to hear from you. Simply reach out to us through the links in the description. See you next time.